He spent 19 seasons at the side of legendary college basketball coach Gene Keady before becoming a head coach himself. Bruce Weber started at Southern Illinois, moved on to Illinois, and in 2012, after leaving Champaign, he ended up at Kansas State when John Currie picked him to replace Frank Martin. 7 seasons into his time in Manhattan, and Weber settled into a pretty good thing. 2 Big 12 championships, an Elite 8 run, and a new team this season that will mean a little bit of rebuilding for Kansas State's coach. Here is the Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy, with K-State basketball coach Bruce Weber. Welcome to another edition of the Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy here at the WTC Gig Powered Studios. Coach Bruce Weber. Coach, thanks for making time. We should set the table here that this will air later, but K-State hasn't played a game yet. So we'll talk a little bit about this team, but really I just kind of want to cover the gamut of Bruce Weber and what brought you to K-State, everything leading up. First, something personal. You know, when I was diagnosed, I received a number of texts, but one of the first ones I received was from you, and I want to thank you personally. That was really, really nice. It was cool.
I'm glad you're doing okay, and hopefully a cancer survivor. I mean, our Coaches Association does a great job with Coaches versus Cancer, and you know, it means a lot to me. It's obviously it's affected you, but it affects so many people, and you know, just in this last 2 or 3 weeks, I have coaching buddies. I have my former AD, Jim Hart, the quarterback. He just had a cancer surgery. I mean, it just seems like it's a contagious epidemic right now. But we keep fighting, battling, raising money, and hopefully you're a survivor that we can keep celebrating birthdays.
I know, exactly. I've touched base with Coaches versus Cancer because I've got a new nonprofit about prostate cancer, get involved, and I've spoken with Jeff Jones about it because he too is a prostate cancer survivor, and it's flared back up on him, and hope Coach is doing well. Grew up in Milwaukee. What was Milwaukee like in the 60s, 70s?
Well, there were the riots. You were talking about the picture up there, Aggieville riots, but it was a little different. It was obviously the racial type riots, and I remember that as a young, growing up, and we had to stay in our house. Wow. And you could not leave your house. Now, after 2 or 3 days, we were going stir crazy, and we drifted 2 blocks to the playground in the park and played, and we probably weren't supposed to at that time, but it's a great place to grow up. And, for us, it's a big city, but it's not too big. It's easy to get around. My mom, I would take a freeway flyer bus and go to the Brewers game and sit in the bleachers. It was $1 for the bus, $2 for the bleachers. We'd bring snacks. We go to doubleheaders. Now awesome. You would never let a 10-year-old, 12-year-old go on his own on the bus. I went downtown Milwaukee to Milwaukee Bucks games, and they literally charged $1. They were an expansion team. There were 10 games that were Buck games, and you were in the top row of it if you got the tickets. But we really figured out how to sneak down. There was always these 2 seats open, and by the end of the second quarter, I was about 4 rows behind the basket every game. So that was fun. From the Packers, it's Vince Lombardi.
That's amazing.
The Bucks, it's Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with Oscar Robertson, and then the Brewers, Robin Yount, all those guys. So a lot of great memories. And then Al McGuire was probably, my favorite of all time. And Al would actually open up practice. He'd have practice on Friday and Saturday night, so his guys couldn't go out. He would start at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
How would that go over now?
And it was open to the public. And I saw Al get in a fight with Bernard Toon, a fist fight. I saw him driving on a motorcycle. I mean, I saw a bunch of stuff. And later on, obviously, he became an announcer, and I worked his camps and got a chance to know him a little better. But some great sports memories and growing up.
How did Al McGuire kind of shape you want to get into coaching? Because that's interesting.
It was more probably my dad, and obviously my older brother Ron is in the Wisconsin High School Hall of Fame. My younger brother David's already in the Illinois High School Hall of Fame. I was involved in coaching. My sisters, teachers and coaches, everyone. My dad came over on a boat from Austria when he was young. When Hitler started going, my grandpa said, "We're out of here." And, you got to give him a lot of credit. And they ended up in Milwaukee. My dad got involved in sports, but education, because of that transition from another country, didn't really get to go to college. So that was his big thing, that all 5 kids were going to college. And then he was pretty tough, and he just said, "You're all going to be teachers and coaches." And that's what we were, and we all enjoyed it. And my first job was 5th grade teacher, and I coached at high school basketball, started out that first year or so, and then had a whim and wanted to be a college coach. And about 40-some years later, here we are.
What did your dad do for a living?
He actually, worked for a Heil company. If you drive, anytime you see a big dump truck or a garbage truck, and you look at the back, it says Heil, H-E-I-L, and he was a sales rep for them. But at night, he had to work, same job, 5 kids. He didn't make a whole bunch of money. He ran rec leagues. He ran the baseball parks. Very, very involved with the Milwaukee Public School recreation, ran a program. Him and a famous coach in Wisconsin, Tom Desautels, started the Whiz Kid basketball team. It was kind of AAU before AAU. Yeah. And I played for the Whiz Kids and growing up in middle school, and later on there were Whiz Kid camps that I worked. And so he was, even the day he passed of a massive heart attack, he had been working at a ball field and opened it up, and that was his thing. And he loved life, he loved sports, he loved people, and it's just sad that, when my mom passed, one of the last things she said, we were going, actually taking Illinois to the national championship game that time. She passed away at the Chicago United Center, the Big Ten tournament. She had a heart attack. Oh. But that few days before that, she just said, "I wish your dad could see what you guys have all done." My brother was winning a state championship in Illinois that year. We went to the national championship, and then my older brother Ron has had a great career, and he's still coaching. He's actually, now he's assistant for his son.
Wow.
Stoughton High School in Wisconsin. He's retired 3 times for coaching. I keep telling him he's Michael Jordan of coaching. He keeps coming back, but he just loves it, and he's coaching JV basketball and assistant for his son, and staying involved. So it's part of our life.
When you're a coach, I mean, it's really neat that you get to your level now, but a coach is a coach. You just like the things that coaches do.
You just love sports, and you love people and being around them in basketball. My wife, anytime our family gets together, she goes, "Do you ever talk about anything else?" And it's just kind of, it is our life, and it's been, and and again, it was my dad. My sisters, even though they were involved in sports, they kind of, they went crazy because my dad, that's all we did. We were in the alley playing basketball. We went to the park playing baseball or football. Even in, we had a hallway, we had a basement. We were playing basketball in the hallway when we were young. We did wiffle ball tournaments in the basement. I mean, that's what, you listen to a Brewer game. Somebody said, "What'd you do on spring break?" In Milwaukee, we listened to the Brewer games because they were opening, and you were playing wiffle ball because it was too cold to go outside still. So, that's kind of just how we grew up.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. You end up going to Western Kentucky. I love this story, how you ended up there. Go through that again.
Well, I just, like I said earlier, I had a whim. I wanted to be a college coach. Some of it I had going to Al McGuire's practices. I had the chance, before Nike started all the clinics, basketball coaching clinics, Medalist Industries, which Al McGuire was part of, they ran clinics all over the country. And I had a chance to go take notes for the clinics with a coach. And I actually got to walk with John Wooden. I'm 19 years old. I'm taking notes. And Coach Wooden said, young man, you like to walk early in the morning. I really didn't, but I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I walked with Coach Wooden at 6 a.m. I still remember Marriott parking lot in Louisville, Kentucky, and walk with him and listen to him. But just, I just had a whim, so I applied to every place. And now as a head coach, we get so many letters from people, and we have a generic letter that we respond. I hate that we do that, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
we get so many letters, you don't have time. I try to handwrite notes to fans and that, but I don't have the time to do that to every person that applies. But I thought, and I applied to grad school everywhere I got in, I thought somebody's going to take me. Well, it just happens in the summer, my brother, my younger one, was being recruited. Bob Gottlieb, who Doug is his son. Bob was the coach at Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I went, and he was recruiting my brother. And at that time, there were no rules. He'd come to our house anytime. My dad and him became buddies. And he said, what do you want to do? And I was coaching high school and teaching 5th grade. So I want to be a college coach. I want to get a grad assistant. And he said, well, I just hired the Western Kentucky GA. And I know Gene Cady because of Eddie Sutton. Coach Gottlieb had worked for Eddie at Creighton. And then Coach Cady had worked for Arkansas. So he called him. And so Coach Cady said, come down and interview. I drove 9 hours, took off. I was working camps. Drove 9 hours. I still remember, and I had my leisure suit on. I was looking good. I was sweating underneath that thing, and walked in the office, and Ann Handy was the secretary. I said, I'm here to see Coach Cady. And she goes, he's not here. Very abrupt and rude. And I said, well, when's he getting back? I'll wait. And he's not going to be, he's not only not here, he's not in the country. He had a last-second chance to go to the Pan Am Games with somebody, and he's gone. And I said, well, I had an interview today. And, well, you'll have to come back. And I just drove 9 hours. I had never driven 9 hours in my life. Got back in the car. I'm just crushed. And so about a week later, I called back. I'm working camp at Marquette University High School. Put quarters in the payphone. No cell phones or long distance. Of course not. And, called. And I said, Coach Cady, it's Bruce Weber. I was there. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about it. He said, can you come down this week? And I actually was working camps for Rick Majerus at the time. I'm running the camp. I can't leave, Coach. Either you hire me or not. And it was real quiet. And obviously, if I would have known Coach Cady at the time, I would have been so intimidated. I would have never said that. But it went silent on the phone. And I just sat there, and finally he goes, all right, be down here on whatever date.
I could hear him.
And that was it. And the crazy thing, my first day there, my mom and dad helped me move down. We get down, we're all in a hotel, all of us are, I'm laying on the floor, and I'm supposed to move in the next day, and we get a call from my older sister. My younger sister got killed in a car wreck that night. So I never had met Coach Cady. She was 13 months younger than I was. And so we were kind of twins, very close. I broke out in hives. So I go to Coach Cady, I have hives. You're stressed, and I said, I'm Bruce Weber, and he's looking at me. I said, I got some bad news. My sister got killed last night when I arrived, and I got to leave. But the crazy thing is, I had never met him. Then I was with him for 19 years, and so much part of his life. And we're at Western. We win the OVC. We get in the NCAA tournament. He gets the Purdue job. I could have stayed with Clem Haskins at Western. He asked me to stay. But, to go to Purdue, I was the third person at Purdue at that time. They had the 2 full-times, and it was called a part-time. And I'm going. I didn't care. I tell our players all the time, my first year I made $2,000 for the year, $200 a month. I was on food stamps. The next 2 years I made $4,000 at Purdue. Coach Cady said, I got you a big raise. I doubled the salary, so $400 a month. So, and that's 10 months. So what do you do the other 2 months? But at that time you could recruit as a grad assistant. And I just went on the road the whole time. And then finally, if I was going to stay in the business, I had to get married. And And my wife, she gets mad at me, but I said, will you marry me and can you send me some money? I need new tires. And so we got married. She had a job, and it's a true story. She'll tell you. She had a job as a registered nurse, and so we got married, and she helped support us, for a while just so I could get through. And then some things happened. I moved up. I was the youngest assistant in the Big Ten for quite a while. And, it just all transpired. I was going to be the coach at Purdue. We got a new AD, new president. They said, we're not going to give you the job. You got to go prove yourself. And I knew he was going to retire, so I took Southern Illinois. And a year later, 9 months later, they called me back and said, come back and be his coach in waiting. But I met with Coach every year at the Final Four, and I'd say, are you ready? And if he wasn't ready within a year, and he didn't want to retire even when he did. And so I wasn't going to be the guy to push him out. And we got going. It was nice to be a head coach. And so, we got something going pretty good at Southern Illinois. And so we just kind of, stayed there. And then Illinois popped up, and the Purdue people were mad, but I didn't have a choice. And I wasn't going to push Coach out. And, or be the guy sitting there, you got to get Weber or whatever. But, just unbelievable time, whether it was Western and Kentucky or at Southern Illinois, Purdue, our days there are unbelievable. We still have great friends there, and even Illinois. I had unbelievable run but very fortunate to be here and happy.
Certainly not comparing what your father did, fleeing Europe to end up in Milwaukee, getting on a boat. But there's something to be said about a young guy hopping in a car. By the way, what kind of car was it?
It was my brother's. It was my brother's.
Put miles in your brother's car.
I would have never. My brother was a full-time teacher, so he actually had a decent car. I had one without power steering that time, and so I got to use his car because mine would have never made it down there.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean that took a lot of guts.
Yeah, and I was all my family, my dad's, my mom, no one had left. I was the first person to leave. My cousins, I just went up and received the award in Milwaukee, and all my cousins, they're all still there. Everyone stayed there. Actually, I left, and then my sister ended up in Chicago, and which isn't too far. She got married, her husband, and my one's in Chicago, but the rest, a lot of the Webers and the Protzmans are all still in Milwaukee, and they love it. And even my buddies, that they didn't leave. It's a place you asked about Milwaukee. It's a place people love, and they don't leave.
I've heard it's a beautiful town. I really want to visit. Southern Illinois. What was it about that job? Was it just the job that was there at the time?
It's kind of a job at the time. And I applied. It wasn't like I didn't apply a lot of places. One, I was very young at that time. If you go back, Billy Donovan was the first young guy to get a job. But before, if you weren't 35 to 40, you weren't going to get a job. It was just, even the assistants were 40 years old. And it just started changing. Billy got that job at Marshall at 30 or 32 or whatever. Patino got a job. It was all that. That's, getting those younger guys. And Coach Katie knew Jim Hart, obviously an unbelievable quarterback, Hall of Famer with the Cardinals. And something, it just worked out. And, he hired me. And I didn't know how bad a shape it was. And when I got there, I got the job on May 15th. And we had 5 players. And it was they didn't tell me all the info.
How do you have 5 players?
Well, they were trying to get the former coach, Rich Herron, who's a famous coach and did unbelievable things there. They were going through trying to get him to retire, and it just kind of got stalemate. And, Matt Painter, myself, Alan Major, who became the head coach at Charlotte. We worked 9 in the morning till midnight, 11:30 every day. I left my wife and family in West Lafayette. I said, we got to get players. And it was a mess. It was we had no cars because the car dealers took the cars because they were mad because Rich had to retire. So this is a true story. We used the secretary's car when kids came to visit because she had a nice car and she'd let us use it so we could show them around campus.
That's incredible.
Oh, ask Matt Painter. We have some unbelievable stories. That Rodney Watson was riding a bike, and one day I got a call at the office. And the person said, Rodney Watson's going to be late. I said, who is this? And Rodney's now the head coach at Southern Indiana. they said, well, we just drove by Rodney and his bike broke down on Highway 13 and he's walking, so I think he's going to be late. So
why don't you pick him up? If you know who it was.
No, it's just
so funny.
But that's the great things, and you look at it. We were in NIT 2 years later. We were Sweet 16 4 teams later, and a lot of good things happened. And very fortunate to have Matt as assistant, Alan. And we got some good players. I guess that helps.
I remember that team that went to the Sweet 16, and it kind of struck me as you were on that cutting edge of the kind of teams that snuck into there and were the big national storyline right when the NCAA tournament's really growing into something. And here's the little school, that busted through with the big guys. I remember that whole thing and how big of a deal it was.
Oh, it was huge. CBS came with us back on our flight, and they stayed in Carbondale for a whole week and doing stories about us. And we were kind of off the map, and then all of a sudden on the map. And 5 straight years we won the Missouri Valley, but we never won the tournament. So we got 5 straight years. Myself too, Matt Painter, and then Chris Lowry. 5 in a row we won the league. And got at-large bids, which, when you think about mid-majors at this day and age, it wouldn't happen. But at that time, the Valley, we had a year where we got 4 teams in, 1 in the NIT.
Valley was really good back
then.
Yeah,
it was, it's Greg McDermott, it's Kevin Stallings, Jim Cruz. You had some really, really good coaches. And Doug Elgin, the commissioner of the Missouri Valley, he's still there. Did a great job and really helped us as a league.
Yeah, that was an incredible time. And as you're in the Sweet 16, are you looking around thinking, well, 4 years ago I didn't have players? It's got to be kind of crazy how far you came.
The good story, we're all sitting there, we're playing at the Dome in Syracuse, and we're waiting to get in, the practice, open practice. And the players are all like laughing, and I'm like, what's the matter, guys? And they said, look, coach. And they got the banners. It was Kentucky, Maryland, and Connecticut, and then us. And they said, Coach, we're not supposed to be here. And I said, we're here. We better enjoy it. And Connecticut beat us, and they had Ben Gordon and that was the year Maryland won it. And they beat Kentucky, and then Maryland beat UConn and went to the Final Four and ended up winning it. But we gave them a go. We pushed them. They were just too good. They had, I think, 6, 7 guys played in the NBA off that team.
Yeah, not real fair.
And we didn't have much chance.
Not real fair. And then you end up at Illinois, and that had to be kind of I don't want to say a cultural shock, but going back to the Big Ten and all the pressure being in that Chicago circle of influence, it had to be really strange.
Yeah, and I've told a lot of people, it's probably one of the most stressful college jobs in the country. I know Kentucky, but you don't have the Chicago media market in Kentucky.
No.
And you got Louisville right there, and that's the bigger city, so I argue with Ben Holland all the time when he was at UCLA, and I've known Ben forever. My brother worked with him, which was tougher, UCLA or, I said, UCLA, they got movie stars, the Lakers, the Dodgers, all this, and it just, and when, it was a tough job, but it was a good job. The problem was, they were so worried about recruiting these kids and, the Chicago kids, and it always didn't work. And, hindsight, I think I would have done one thing. And Bill Self did it, actually. He had Billy Gillespie, who was a Texas guy. I would have had one coach out of the region. So when you couldn't get guys or there weren't players in your region, you still could have got some guys. Darren Williams was from Texas. We had 3 kids from Texas on that team that went to the national championship, mixed in with the Illinois guys. And, hindsight, you always look back, you always critique yourself. I think that's one thing I maybe would have done a little different, because they wanted you to recruit the kids there. And the Big Ten, because there's such a big population base, they are very regional recruiters. And they get those kids. I saw Jabari Parker in 5th grade. I went to his game. He came to our camp. I saw kids, Glenn Robinson, 8th grade. I mean, you saw these kids early and you brought them in, and sometimes they worked out. Glenn Robinson's a pretty good story. Jabari Parker's a pretty good story. And then other times the publicity didn't work out.
Kids speak.
Yeah, they got full of themselves, and then they didn't realize they got to work at the game, and it, all the attention. Chicago papers are writing about 8th graders.
Yeah, that's.
And it's not healthy. It's not good for the kids, but if you get a well-rounded person like Jabari Parker, he can survive it. His dad was an NBA player. But some of the other kids, they can't.
There's no place in high school basketball like the subculture of Chicago high school basketball. It's so important to the town, to the culture, to everything. It's kind of its own little world, and it just can be a strange world.
It's interesting. It really is, and a lot of problem too was academics. A lot of times the kids didn't have the grades, so you recruited them and worked them, and then they didn't have grades, and so you had that issue too to deal with. So, it's still a great place, great fans. The other part of it is in Chicago, there is no loyalty to Illinois. It's such a hodgepodge.
Sure.
People come from all over the world. The reason they have the Big Ten tournament there, they have some stat, how many alumni are from each school. It's astronomical, that live in Chicago, Penn State or Minnesota or whatever. They because of there's 7 million, 9 million people, whatever in the area, you have all those people. But it's south of I-80, it is loyal to Illinois. And you got, great people and great fans. But so you had to deal with that part of it also.
That second team you have, you made an incredible run. You lose to Ohio State to end the regular season. Yeah. That had to stink.
Well, and I think it ended up good. We led for 39 minutes and 52 seconds in that game. And they hit a 3 to beat us, and they had nothing to play for. They were on probation. It was the last game of the year. But I think it helped us. I think there was so much pressure because, every day, it was USA, New York Times, ESPN was there, Fox was there. You have no idea. We'd go to a movie theater with the team, and we literally had to sneak in the back because people would wait autographs. The hotels, we would go underneath the hotels and come up the elevators because of the craziness of that team. We were undefeated. Illinois, the crazy, you talked about Chicago basketball. A basketball was going for $500 that was signed. People would wait outside our practice facility and get basketballs, signed by our guys. And it got to a point one week I told our sports information guy, no, we are doing no interviews. And you tell those guys hugged me. They were so happy. You want the attention, but then when it comes,
it'd be overwhelming.
You have no life.
Be a distraction. Make it to the title game. You lose to a very good North Carolina team. What do you remember of that game?
Well, our big guy, James Augustine, only played 8 minutes.
Yeah. That stinks. What is it with you and big men getting injured for the tournament?
Well, he wasn't injured. He had foul trouble.
Oh, okay.
He got his 4th foul, and he had only played like 3-4 minutes, and I told our coaches to leave him in. Before I could turn, he got his 5th foul. And people still, I see Illinois people in the airports and all, and they still talk about the game. But Sean May played unbelievably. He had his best game of his career, I think. And but we had three shots to tie it or win it, and we just didn't do it.
So I'm struck by this as I was doing research. That game was in the Dome in St. Louis, and that loss probably sticks with Illinois fans.
Oh.
That's where Kansas State lost the 1998 Big 12 championship in football in that same dome.
Yes.
I was looking at it, I'm like, you got to be kidding.
Well, and then I go back, obviously, Purdue, we lose to Mitch Richmond, and who we had beaten, Lon's team, and Kansas, then, Danny Manning, they end up, but we're the 1 seed.
You're the 1 seed.
And we were really, really good. And we had beaten Kansas State by 20 or more in December. And it just we were up 10-0 to start the game. And we went on a 10-0 run to start the second half. And Mitch banked in at the top of the key 3-pointer. I still remember it. And our guys I don't think they ever. That team was really good. And, they didn't think they were going to lose. And all of a sudden, we're in trouble. And Steve Henson, they were pretty good too. And Lon did a great job. And but I'm not. Could we beat Danny Manning? And boy, I don't know. They were.
That was a weird
season.
Team
of destiny. So.
That was a weird season. I know. They weren't very good for most of the year, and then KU turned it on. I remember that time you beat K-State before Christmas,
Yep.
and then K-State went into the holiday break when you can spend more time with the kids, and the team completely changed.
Yeah.
It was kind of a coaching lesson for me about how valuable that point of the season can be when you get them out of class and you just got them.
We always talk about that time because you can go 2-a-days, not to kill them, but to teach them and get shooting in and critique stuff and make some strides. And I always say to them, this is your chance to be an NBA player because you have no class for about 25, 30 days, and it's just all about basketball. And if you love it and you got kids that want to make progress, you can make big progress.
One final thing before we take a break, the Custard Cup. What is it about this place? Give your sales pitch for the Custard Cup.
It's the best custard around. I'm just telling you. But it's been there forever. It's in Champaign, Illinois,
Right.
and my lawyer, after I left, it was going out of business, or the family wanted to sell it and close it, and it's like places here, Vista in Manhattan or whatever. It'd been there forever, and my lawyer said, hey, we don't want this to die, and he asked myself, Ron Turner, former coaches, a lot of former players, and we all invested in it, and it's done well, and it's still doing well, and it's a neat little thing and great to be part of it. I actually make money off it, so it's okay.
What's your go-to order at the Custard Cup?
I'm great with the Almond Joyful. They have a concrete. They do the concretes or the blizzards or whatever, but I love the Almond Joyful, the coconut and the almonds and the chocolate with the vanilla ice cream. It's to die for. I haven't had one in a long time, but
That's solid. Now I'm hungry. We're going to take a break, and we'll end on that joyful note as we revisit the Power Chat right after this.